Vayner Nation, what is good? Super excited to be here. I actually am going to have to edit this for some social media content because the two of us have done wine content before many moons ago when Kevin was the king of Web 2.0 with dig.com. The amazing, wonderful, profound Kevin Rose is with us. And is now the king of Web3. I mean, Moonbirds is a fucking beast. I want to talk about that. And I also want to kind of execute on this little mini thing I've been doing called the Empathy Chats. Is that the official word? Yeah. Beautiful. The Empathy Hour, which is always done within a half an hour, which is my favorite part of the whole concept, where we taste a little empathy wine. We talk about emotional intelligence. And I think when I think about Kevin, I actually am going to go into a place of asking him. He was such a young kid when he was running such a big company many years ago. He's now at the helm of a big company because that's just what happens. I lived it a year ago with VeeFriends. You kind of have these hopes and ambitions to be creative, and then there's actual real revenue and responsibilities, and you got to build something. So first of all, Kevin, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, brother, good to see you. Such an inspiration for all that I do. So it's good to be here with you.
Kev, let's go into the subject matter here. We'll get into some of the other stuff. The reason I want to do this mini thing is help John and Nate and the Constellation team promote a little Empathy Wines, empathywines.com, go check it out. But B, really, after writing 12 and a half, I wrote it during COVID. I really got into my feelings of what kind of leader I am, like why things work for me, why it's sustainable. This will actually make sense to you because I think, you were truly one of my only friends, like actual friends I made. Like I make acquaintances out the ass. I even make lightweight friends, but like friend, like, and I think one thing that I always loved about you is I find you incredibly compassionate. Like if I had a compassionate Cabernet, I would have been pouring that right now.
Thank you.
And what I mean by that is I could actually sense, we've never talked about this. But I'm happy to say this out loud because it just shows what kind of human being you are. I could actually sense as I was starting to ascend up in the Web 2 world, not 2009 anymore, not more like 2000, not 11, but in like 2013, 14, when it was like, I could actually sense from you the most wonderful feeling, which was I felt you were concerned for me if I was going to burn out, die of a heart attack. Like you would, you and I are similar and different. We have some similarities with content but in real life, you have a lot more introverted aspects. You keep it a little bit tighter. Yeah. And, when we would be out at events and things of that nature, I would just like go into the tornado and like kiss every baby and right. And I could actually sense, we never ever had this combo. Something that made me fall in love with you even more was it was so nice to be cared for. I could sense your concern.
I remember when we went to have dinner at Hearth Restaurant in New York.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And you had asked if the camera crew could come along. And I said no. And it wasn't because, good news. I surely would love that because, by the way, mistake, because I wish we could watch that video right now. Because that's a little bit part of this that people miss. But I forgot about this dinner. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. I just wanted to get I wanted to have that one-on-one time,
I love
just get
that.
let's turn the cameras off and just see how you're feeling, how you holding up. Because you were, dude, I remember when we left that restaurant, we couldn't walk like 5 feet without people being like, Gary. And I'm sure that's still the case today, obviously. And it's just like, but I wanted to make sure like things were good. It's
so let's talk about that.
A little check-in.
You're the best dude. I know that. That's why I've always cherished this friendship. That's different because that's a friendship. Tell me what you did well and what you didn't do well running Dig. Paint the picture for everybody. You were super young.
Yeah.
You were literally the poster child for Web 2 because of that business. Was it Business Week? Or I don't remember what was the magazine?
Yeah, Business Week put me on the cover about a year into us doing it. And then it was, you've been through this before as well. Like then it was Inc. magazine, then I was on Jimmy Fallon twice. But
by the way, Fallon's Moonbirds post today got me fired up. I literally texted him right away. I'm like, yes. So no, but that moment was there's these quintessential moments. Ashton challenging CNN to 1 million. DJ Khaled for Snapchat, kind of the I would call it like a Charlie D'Amelio thing for TikTok. There's these moments. And much of what I'm concerned about with NFTs and Web3 of like a crash that happened with web stocks. And then like the roses from the concrete were built for the, the slash dots and, the meta, like the things.
Amazon.com, eBay, PayPal, all those were Web 1, didn't know if they were going to make it. And then eventually they got built up and they made it. Yeah.
But you and Dig represented things that were built from the concrete of the carnage of the internet stock bubble.
Right.
And really represented for me it was such a big deal. How old were you when you were on the cover of that magazine?
Oh gosh, I don't know. My late 20s. So I think it was my late 20s because I'm in my mid 40s now. So
late 20s. How old was Dig? Was 1 year, right?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, about 1 year.
And what happened? You raised some capital, and that's what I remember. There was a big number on at the time. Now that it's like small number.
Yeah.
What did the cover? Don't be humble, please, because we're painting a picture. What did the cover actually say? Because I know you know it.
It said something like how this kid made $60 million in 6 months or something like that. Or
which wasn't true because that was the valuation.
Wasn't true.
They always, this shit happens to me all the time. Like, but the headline doesn't actually match the truth.
Right.
But that was what was that, Kevin, in his late 20s? That's a lot to handle. All the instant internet fame, which was still different back then. You were single. You were running a company for the first time of this size. There was lots of things that happened. Like
being single was probably the best part of what could have happened during that time. But in terms of all the other stuff, it was like, we laugh because we both know you were with me during that time.
I watched you. So what do you think you did well that you want to bring to the table with this new venture or anything else you're doing in the future?
I didn't
really.
Well, I mean, what it was is that here's the deal. This is the real talk. The real talk was that I was a college dropout, and I just didn't have a brain for school in that capacity. Like I have a really hard time memorizing things. And when you're talking about school, that was always difficult for me. Like I couldn't tell you where certain letters of the alphabet would fall, like on the spectrum on the A to Z. Like there was really things that other kids got.
You got reading comprehension stuff?
Yeah, it was like in retention. It was like I could read something and I would forget it immediately.
Me too.
Like,
well, by the way, to this day, you've seen me write.
It's horrible.
My
this is how I know I'm getting a real email from Gary. It's like when I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, Gary wrote that email. Okay, that's not his assistant. Yeah, exactly.
I totally get it. So you go ahead, keep saying you weren't that.
Yeah. So basically, I was bad at that. I loved computers, so I got into that. I studied computer science. It was quite frankly, it was too hard for me. I dropped out, but I loved product. And I loved building, and I loved ideation and dreaming up new ideas and just thinking of what could possibly be, and we should probably go build this. So that meant I worked with a lot of contractors, and I was just trying to find people that would help me build these ideas that I had. Now, the issue, is I always had this kind of like hidden thing behind me that was always fearful that someone would discover my faults, my internal things that I was carrying around with me. And so I was afraid to ask for help. So there were so many times when I didn't know the answer for something, and I didn't want to raise my hand and be like, hey, investor, hey, mentor. Like, I'd like, if I ask this dumb question, they'll immediately look down on me. And I didn't realize that.
That's right.
Yeah,
you didn't realize humility was a strength, not a weakness.
Right. And admitting that you're wrong or that you don't know something is the only way you can actually grow.
I had a very different thing. I would be able to figure out things in a meeting that I didn't know in the beginning. So I wouldn't ask for clarity on things I didn't know because I knew how to get to the answer through a series of statements and questions along the way that were different.
Interesting.
And then when I really started getting into myself the last 5 years as a better leader than I've ever been, I realized that I was at a different place in my career where me saying, what is those basic acronyms? What does that mean? Would resonate so heavily with the 12 kids in the room that I could change the culture of Vayner to be based on humility as a superpower by me leading the way with like, hey client, what did that acronym mean? And I went away from a fun strength, which was I could still figure it out. It was like profoundly like cool for me. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like that's how my brain works. To something that's even better. The humility, like, you know, like I don't even have to challenge myself to figure it out. Like, did you get the answer? And more importantly, inspired people to lean into humility.
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. Once you finally that sticks with you and you're not afraid, it's a big unlock.
One thing that I think you probably struggled with, that I struggled with to this day, which always blows people's mind because I'm so candorous on stage and as GaryVee. My assumption, because I was close enough to you, was it was incredibly hard for you to have the tough conversation with any employee at Dig that they sucked or they needed to be fired because they were all your friends. Or if nothing else, even when the company got bigger, you were Kevin the awesome dude. Is that true?
It is absolutely true. I think there's a couple things there. One, I didn't know how to properly evaluate like new incoming talent and do the required due diligence to figure out whether or not they were actually really good at what they claim to be good at. And then the second piece was, I want to stop you real quick.
Huge superpower of yours, and I share it, and I don't want to take this away from people. What Kevin said there was profound, don't underestimate the power of blind optimism. You know, we can sit here and talk about all the clunkers that happened because Ricky told you they were great, and you're like, Ricky, you're my guy. Let's get a beer afterwards. But you would have missed a lot of greatness too if you went too logical too. I'm always scared that we're mature now and missing magic.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what was the second piece of that? So, the other hard piece is that I was one that avoided conflict. My dad was a very verbally aggressive person to the family, but more so to my mom. And so, you know, he would, there almost wasn't a night in my childhood where he wasn't in a yelling, screaming battle. And my mom wouldn't fight back. She was just like the receiver of that. And so I grew up not wanting to be like dad, you know, and just wanting to be the opposite. So I avoided conflict at all costs. And so it was really hard
my dad didn't do that to my mom, but he did it to his employees, which is why I think I'm the most pro-employee communicating entrepreneur in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad's, Kev, I drove 45 minutes from my parents' house to Wine Library where we did our show. Not that one. It was the smaller store at the time. At 14 years old, my dad did not say a single word to me the whole ride. Dead silence. We pull up to the store and he turns to me and he goes, keep an eye on the employees. They want to steal. That was the only thing he said. So I can really resonate with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my dad's the best. Like he was tough on the outside because he was so soft on the inside. I'm like the reverse. I'm so soft on the outside because I'm tough as fuck on the inside.
Isn't it funny how when you evaluate your parents, for me, you know, with my dad, he was like the best dad in terms of like taking me outside, throwing around the football, like, you know, taking me to Boy Scout meetings, like things like that, checked all those boxes for me, but then was a terrible husband. And so, you know, it's my job in going forward to pick the best attributes that I can look at and say, those are amazing. I'm going to carry those forward in my life going forward. And here's all the crap that dad, no thanks. Like my dad since passed away, but I can let that go now and say that stays with you, you know, like I'm freeing up my kids from having to have that pain. And in a sense, kind of freeing him up as well, because that pain doesn't continue on through me, you know?
I mean, that's an incredibly, I wanted this blog series to be really focused on the business of emotions and business. Like, you know that I am an uncomfortable cheerleader of you publicly forever. And
I've always appreciated that, man.
And this has been such a profoundly emotional week for me because I feel like you're getting a lot of just credit this week from this new world. And it makes me happy. Not that you need it, because I know you too well. You don't need it. It just makes me happy. Like this weekend, when Moonbirds went bananas, of course, people that haven't been paying attention are going to have a natural reaction. No different than everybody has a natural reaction when they see something explode to that level so fast. And, you know, obviously the conversation plays out on Twitter and Discord, and being able to jump into a couple of random conversations and saying, Kevin told me about CryptoPunks. Kevin this, Ryan Carson gave me my first speaking engagement, like has been just so enjoyable. And the way you just described what you described, which I believe you just articulated my personal beliefs, one man's point of view, single greatest responsibility of a human being. I believe the singular responsibility of a human being, back to parents being such a framework of actual life, is to focus on the good that your parents brought to the table, carry it on to your children, forgive the bad that your parents brought to the table, because, oh, by the way, they had a parent. And for the ones, unlike me, because I didn't know I got lucky. My problems were micro with my dad, but they were real because we worked together. The great fortune in my life was the only grandparent I knew was the grandparent that parented my father. Me knowing my father's mom for my whole life was the greatest gift God ever gave me, because I was able to understand my father's shortcomings because my grandmother was so profoundly in my life. She would come on my mom's birthday on May 3rd to our house, and she would leave September 10th on my dad's birthday. So she lived with us almost half the year. And then, by the way, I knew her mother, which is fucking completely insane. I knew my great grandmother super well. We immigrated from America and she died when I was 14. So I really knew her too. I think I talk about the shit that I talk about so much because I understood all three of them. And I was able to take all the things that my father has done for me and provided for me and view it as a good. And my dad's got plenty of shortcomings. I have plenty of shortcomings. My kids are getting older. I'm laughing because I'm like, uh-oh, there's another side to this game. They're about to do it to me. Wait a minute, and so I'm really proud of you. That is incredibly emotionally enlightening that you can understand. Let me take what Pops did well. Let me not take what Pops didn't do well. And most people are incapable of doing that. And I think your blind optimism on employees is a kissing cousin to your ability to take the good from your dad and try to build on it. I think that's a really big, I wish every person that's listening here can start the process of forgiving their parents on what they didn't do well, being pumped about and even if it's one thing, maybe it's not even something that they did. Maybe it's they gave you pretty blue eyes and that was a good factor in your life. Just being appreciative for something and then building forward. My mom and dad fucked me up is just not an excuse for the rest of your life.
Right.
It's really cool, Kev.
Yeah.
So cool. So you brought all of that to the table as a young 20-year-old. I have so many entrepreneurs, as you can imagine, listening to this. This is why I want to talk about it. Who are you now, all these years later? And as you embark on probably hiring a lot of people, and obviously Ryan is probably going to be very involved. I don't know what, you probably have other responsibilities. I'm not even sure where you are in your investing career. Like, is Moonbird, actually, I'm just going to ask you, is this it? Like, is this what you do now?
Yeah.
No investings? Are you're passively involved in a fund, actively involved in a fund?
Yeah, True Ventures were, as a partner at, they have been very cool about this whole thing. I mean, they put some money into the company, so that's been great. And they've been like, Kevin, you got to go. Yeah, into Proof. Yeah. And they're like, you need to just go run with this. And so, the deals and stuff that I would typically look at, thankfully we have 50 plus people at True that I can hand them off to.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
So this is it. You're the CEO of.
It's my focus
Proof?
right now. Yeah, that's right.
And so, who do you think? What do you think is going to be different this time?
Oh man, a ton. I think that in terms of just having had so much time in a gap between when I started Dig and then where I am today. Just I'll give probably the biggest influence was when I joined Google. And when I was inside of Google and saw how that machine worked, and I saw the caliber of talent that was around the table and just the rigor and process and execution that they're able to pull off, and all those things, I was like, whoa, wait a second. Yeah. Like, I know why they win. It's like, it was just insane.
Smart, it's tight. They're going.
It's smart. It's tight. They're going. They, you don't have to micromanage anyone. When you hire that caliber of an employee, they go and they run, you know, and they can just execute without you having to look over their shoulder. And that is a beautiful thing. When you can truly let go of something to someone.
It's 13 years old. My 15, 20 direct reports at VaynerX is now allowing me to have the capacity to double operate.
Right.
100%. I couldn't do VeeFriends 5 years ago. I couldn't. Something would have fell. The thing that's falling now is brand GaryVee, which is a great pleasure because I'm taking that energy into the characters. But that makes so much sense to me. Real quick,
so
taste the wine. Have you had the Empathy Cabernet yet?
I have not.
The Empathy Elephant? Okay.
Thank you for sending me some.
Yes, you are a real wine guy these days, which makes me very happy. And this is a real wine inside that bottle. So I'm excited to get your vibes.
That's beautiful, dude. What year is this? Is it 2019? Wow. That's drinking quite well for how young it is. That's amazing.
We couldn't put the actual fruit that's in it because of like reasons, but it's a big deal wine. It was super fun.
I love that about you. We talked about this years ago where you had this idea of, so the thing that people don't know about Napa Valley is that you have these top tier producers that produce like the highest end Cabernet. And for whatever reason, they have like a second blend or a cut that just doesn't make it into their main primary blend.
Yep.
And for anyone drinking it, you'd be like, good God, this is amazing wine. It's like the best ever, right? But they make you sign an NDA and then they'll sell it off because they don't want their brand confusion and dilution to happen.
Correct.
And so what you've done here is you clearly bought some good juice and you're putting it in here. Yeah, I bet.
Crazy
I bet we can have an offline conversation about who this is.
Yes, I will tell you, but like, let's put it this way. People got 3 times the wine and it was expensive. It was like $80. So, I mean, do you back to kind of like people management, mental, like, what do you think is one of the things required today emotionally for success that maybe isn't talked about, or even if it's talked about, is it just Kevin Rose? Because we're all going to have different. Kevin Rose's point of view of like, no. Tenacity or ambition is misunderstood, or patience. Like if I said the emotional framework rainbow, what gets you going in the way that like empathy was clearly a big one for me and then has now become much more pop culturized? Like if I said to you, actually, you're so humble. I just need this for you. I need this for me, not for you. If I asked you, Kev, you've really had some career. Like, be nice to the kids listening. This is not about you giving roses. Everyone will give roses to you. It's your last name. Like, what, just as a teaching moment, what has allowed you to be in a world where you can't memorize shit, no reading comprehension, whatever, like, what have you had? Why are you here? Why is this working? Why are me and all my A+ friends this weekend texting, K Rose, impressive? Why?
I think the first and foremost would be that I have known in that I'm going to fail at many, many, many things. And so if you take a look at my track record, I would say half of the things that I have created, which have been raised a lot of money, have completely gone away and just become nothing and failed.
I still miss Pounce. Do you know me and AJ talk about Pounce once a year? I always say to AJ, I'm like, bro, I think you really should have quit school, like I told you, and been the CEO of Pounce. I would
that'd be huge.
I kind of would have faked CEO'd it behind the scenes, and I think it could have been Twitter. Like we talk about that. Pounce was better than Twitter at that moment. Like you built such a Burka. Like, man, that was a really good product. That was close. You were stretched too thin, but it was close.
I was stretched too thin because I was trying to dig at the same time, and it was just a lot of the functionality that exists today in Twitter. A lot of that was first on Pounce, which is really, really cool. But
fun,
but I think the point being is that, I've met some entrepreneurs that have been crushed by missing on their first at bat, or their second. And they've said, this didn't work, blah, blah. If you really believe it's in your DNA, and some people aren't like this. I got a buddy that he works at Reddit now, and he was early red employee, made some good money, and literally goes home at 6:00 at night and fires up, and smokes some weed at night. And like for him, that's the best life possible, right? Like he doesn't ever want to be an entrepreneur, and he's completely content. But if it's in your DNA and you feel it, like I can start something, I have crazy ideas, and you want to go after it, like you just got to keep getting up out of bed every single morning. And it's never, this is what I tell my team right now with Moonbirds and everything that's going on. It's never up and to the right, just like nonstop. It's going to be lumpy. The emotional ride of an entrepreneur is a roller coaster with loop-de-loops and all the crazy shit in it. And it's going to be, you got to be ready for those days as well. So it's like that grit that has to come out of you is real. And it takes an emotional and physical toll on your body. And if you have that and you're ready for that, then you just get after it every day. You get up energized and ready to build what you believe is going to be the future.
So tenacity is a real one.
Absolutely.
Like conviction, tenacity.
And also just not accepting, it's funny. Sometimes I'll have an engineer, they'll come to me and be like, oh, that's tough. That's challenging. I don't know if we can do that. And my response is always, listen, Elon Musk is landing rockets back onto floating barges in the middle of the ocean after they've come down from space. Someone wrote that algorithm to land a rocket on a floating barge that's moving in the water. Like if they can do that,
we can
add that button.
History. Yeah. We can get the history of the watch on Houdinki, right? Right,
exactly. Or we could add that button or add that social feed. I'm like, if that could be done, we can do it too. So
I like history was the one class I did decent in. And it's usually been like 1900 to now, like very modern history. But occasionally when the pyramids come up, like when I'm in the Middle East or I see it on TV or even in NFT land, I'm like, oh, the pyramid in the background, like in the background. I literally do stop and think, I'm like, these fuckers 1 trillion years ago built this fucking thing with 0.0 machines in the world.
It's crazy.
To your point, are you a yes person or a no person? Fascinating. What's been the most, while I've got you, what's been the most surprising part of the last 16 months? Let's call January 1, 2021, the birth of the new generation NFTs. What has like completely caught you off guard?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the different use cases that are available to NFTs. I think that I say this with absolute truth. When you attached real world utility to NFTs, I was like, I remember you hit me up and you're like, dude, I'm doing this thing. I was like, oh shit, that's new. That's exciting. And like, I think we're going to see different verticals of use cases for NFTs appear over the next year. And I love that. There is, well, I'll give you one example since we're talking about wine. Like there is no reason why if I wanted to collect Empathy wine, I would have to take this as a shipment. You could keep it in perfect storage. You could send it to me as an NFT. It could go up in value over time. I could trade it 10 times over with multiple friends. And then when the person finally burns the NFT at the end to receive the bottle, it has perfect proven provenance. We know where it came from. We know it was stored at the right temperature. Like this is a no-brainer, right?
What I literally, if I was in the picks and shovels business, I would be buying up warehouses in the middle of nowhere to have temperature controlled, security-based warehouses, are about the way data centers popped up all over the world. Over the next 20 years, there are going to be warehouses all over the country, all over the world that are going to just hold shit. Like my background right now is going to be sitting, my entire sports card collection is going into the middle of nowhere. By the way, no different than tax havens for art in Morocco, right? Yes. It's not like the person's walking around with their Picasso.
Right.
Right. And so to your point, from issuing to collecting, I actually think the most exciting part is NFTs issued against physicals that get held up in a mercantile exchange or a warehouse and get traded in perpetuity, to your point, until you have to burn the token to take it off the market to actually get the physical.
Right. And then the actual producer receives a cut of those royalties every single time it's resold, which is amazing.
Best, which is the best because the person that actually is the fucking person is the one winning economically. That's amazing.
And you cut out all the fraud, the faking, the corkage issues, like all
Kev,
the storage.
What you're very good at, and we share this is where our relationship started. You're like me, right? Like I'm leading the witness, but like, it's insane that even the people in it don't really see how forever changing this is going to be.
Yeah. Well, that's great though, because that means it's early days and we're right in it and we're investing at the right time. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Did you think that you would, this is actually a great question for you, given to our provenance. Did you ever think you would get another at bat like this, the way you did with Web 2? Obviously, when you did Dig, you were on like tech television, right? Like that whole, Seth, you watched them as a kid?
Screensavers.
The Screensavers.
That's amazing.
Seth. So, you really saw it. Like, I know you, so I'm going to just tell it for the audience. You share what I share, and it's a fucking thing, which is, you just know that the consumer, the consumer, you really have that really at the highest levels, which is why I've always publicly given you so much daps, and you've just been such an integral part of my career. Did you even think about it? Did it even cross your mind that there would be another era like what you felt in your mid-20s? And then B, like, how enjoyable has it been to get the band back together? I mean, we have interacted more in the last 14 months than we did in the prior 9 years combined. Like, and Mike Lazaro, and like it's been crazy for me. This has been like unbelievable. Truly, the band's getting back together again. Thoughts on both those questions? Very straightforward question. Do you think, because that's what this is. This is obviously a true. Did you think that would ever happen again in your life?
Yeah, I think that in my mind, when you talk about tech in general, these great moments of transition to something like completely different and new, they happen like, at least they're cyclical, but they happen about every 8 to 15 years. And so, you had Web 1, then Web 2 was about 4 or 5 years later. And then I would argue mobile was probably the next big one after that, which was a handful of years later. Yeah. And then now Web 3 is so you kind of just sit there and you wonder, am I going to be too old to jump back in? And maybe it's a technology that doesn't even apply to me, that I'm not even excited about. Like maybe it's like some type of farming like revolution that happens where I'm just like, I'm not going to go build a farm, right? So
you might, dude. I feel like you could be into that. You're into that shit.
It's like I'm a little hippie. I do like the green out here in Portland. But I got to say, like when this happened, it's like, like I've got a whole thing of freaking Wolverine #1 sitting over there. I love collectibles. It's like I've always been you're the one that told me to go buy a Jordan back. What was that, about 2 years ago? Yep. You're like, dude, go get a Jordan rookie card. They're like, it's like you called me up, and I was like,
I just really believe
they're fractionalizing it. Remember, they were starting to fractionalize them. I
mean, I still think the fractionalization of physicals in an NFT world has untapped value at scale.
Yeah, the question is the SEC going to see it as a security or not, right?
Which is incredibly fair. And like, to me, like what's been fun about growing up in the wine business was my whole business life was based on there's going to be regulation. So I never get I can't wait for the SEC to create clarity. Right. Like I happily paid an uncomfortable amount of taxes yesterday. Like I'm not looking to not pay my tax. I'm happy to be in America. I was born in the USSR. I'll pay my taxes. I'll follow the rules. The problem is when things are moving so fast, the government's slower. And I have empathy. Right. The government's trying to figure it out. I get it.
Right. Yeah, totally.
So what surprised you? What else?
Just about this whole Web3 movement in general?
Mm-hmm. Or I didn't finish the last thought, which I think is fun. How did it feel when you realized it was really, really happening? When do you say that you realized Web3 was becoming, because you're a consumer guy, which is why I fuck with you so heavy, back to the intuition. When do you feel that you were like, oh shit? Like, well, I would say
that happened before NFTs. That would have been when DeFi started happening. Mm-hmm. And I was realizing, and I was watching the mechanics behind the scenes that power DeFi and how they could offer interest that was 10x higher than your bank could with 0 people. And part of the reason why your bank can't pay you the interest they want to is Wells Fargo has I don't know what it was, 150,000 employees or something like that, some outrageous number of overhead that they have to pay for. And so when you have smart contracts and code that's powering this stuff, I was like, oh, of course people are going to use this. It's a better product. Now it's harder to use right now, and all the rough edges haven't been sanded down, but that's when you want to invest, right? That's when you want to get in, is when it's really difficult to use and people are still unsure. And is this the future? Of course, digital currency is going to be the future. You tell me if you got some land, if I give Gary his own chunk of land, say, hey, start a country, are you going to go buy printing presses and shit? No, you're going to start a digital currency because it's the more modern thing to do, right? Like, it's just the future.
Everything's digital currency now. Who the fuck's walking around with paper cash?
I know.
Everyone's like, digital currency. I'm like, what the you're paying with your iPhone, like the Apple Pay. Like, what do you think's happening here?
Right.
As if.
Right. They just still, it was still cash. No, not really.
I have so many OG friends like from the wine world and like 70, 80, 90-year-olds. And of course, last couple of years. So of course, everyone needs 15 minutes of shit on. Gary, can I speak to you for 15 minutes? And they're the OGs that I grew up with. So I'm like, I got you, Johnny, get him. Johnny has the family, I haven't talked to you in 13
minutes. Yeah.
And then they spend the entire 13 minutes shitting on crypto. I was like, why did we have this? Johnny, I've been talking to you in 14 years since we drank some wine in the wine business. And you called me for 14 minutes to shit on crypto. And I love it because I understand the essence of it. But I always end the same way. I'm like, I kind of take the punches. And then I'm like, Johnny, how much cash do you have on you right now? I'm like, you do know that your grandfather said the same thing about credit cards. Like, that's where history's a fucking son of a bitch. Go read the quotes from people interviewed in newspapers in the 60s about credit cards.
Oh, dude, I've got one better for you. Want to hear something crazy? Listen to this. This is a true story. Well, back in the day, when they made the transition to canvas paintings, there were haters that came out because they said it's not permanent, it's not on the wall, it can be damaged. And everyone discounted canvas paintings and thought they were a cheaper knockoff than having something done permanent on a wall or a structure. So how crazy is that? Isn't it great? Because now what's happening with NFTs?
By the way, I like you don't think people were sitting around a dinner table saying, fuck these cars, Johnny the horse outside is more than enough?
Yeah, my horse is so beautiful. I can pet my horse. I can't pet my car.
I control my horse. like a million things. Like a car might hit my horse. Like it's always the same shit. The one that was profound to me was I bought the iPhone the day it came out, as you did, and everybody else that was in our game. Like, people really thought the BlackBerry was going to win because the buttons. Like, I actually believed it. I was like, the internet is on the iPhone.
Right.
The internet. Like, I'm outside on the internet.
It was slow as hell back then, but it did work.
It was slow as fuck, but you could get to it. It was profound. Remember, like, walking around Earth not knowing the score of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I used to have to use.
5 minutes ago.
What did I use? What was the one, like the Palm? Palm had a phone, and it was the worst browser. Yeah, the little pencil came out. Yeah.
Holy shit. Oh, so Kev, okay, so DeFi was it. What about on the consumer side of NFTs? When did you have your NFT? What was your aha for NFTs?
Yeah, I mean, so anybody that tells you they minted CryptoPunks and knew what they were doing is just full of it, because I was there. I minted 10 of them and I immediately forgot about them.
Kevin minted, because they were free, in 2017. Is that correct, Kev?
Whenever they came out. Yeah, whenever they came. Yeah, something like that. 18?
I think it's 18. I think it's 17.
Yeah.
17, right? Yeah, 17. Yep. You minted CryptoPunks in 2017. Let's just start with that. Like, the smartest friends I have in 2021 are like, what the fuck is a... So a
buddy called me up and he was just like...
Who?
My friend Patrick Collins, actually. Yeah, it was a childhood buddy I had.
Yeah.
So Patrick called me up and he's like, hey, dude, these things are cool. They're like on Ethereum and like they're these little punk rock characters. I'm like, I like little punk rock characters. And so I just went and did that. And then I got 10 of them and I was like, okay. And I immediately, thank God I had my 1Password and I had my things stored in there, but I kept them in a wallet that was no longer supported when I tried to revive them. It was called Parity Wallet. When did you try to revive them? It would have been December, a little over a year ago,
December 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. When we talked was also December, I think maybe January, but had you already revived your punks when we talked?
I just got them out. I got them out. I finally got them working. And I was like, oh crap, I need to trade up to a zombie right away because I want to get a cooler one. And so
that's a very big strength of yours. I like having like 800 down here. You like having 2 up there. And you're always right about that. I just like having 800 down here.
We probably should have done all of the above at that time, to be honest.
One of my friends has 300 VeeFriends, and he's super sad because he's more like me. He has like 300 down here, and he doesn't have a panda. He doesn't have a black cat. He doesn't have an astronaut. So he needed you in his life because you went. I remember vividly you saying, "Dude, you need to get a zombie." I'm like, "No, I got to get 34 purple hats." I have a zombie. And I have an ape, so I
you bought that ape. That's right. Remember? Oh my god, I'll never forget that day because I was looking at doing. You basically priced me out because you pumped that one up, and then all the other prices went up, and I was like, damn it, I'm done.
It's amazing how much I believe in CryptoPunks long term. I really believe in provenance. I really do.
Yeah.
I really think at the end of the day, too much has happened in 10,000 unique characters in the last 2 years that has pretty much solidified CryptoPunks says, this is who started that movement. This is what it is. Too many people that own it. I just think it's locked and loaded.
Yeah, I agree. Think about all the hat tips of like the 3D glasses and all the stuff that they that is seen on every PFP.
Yeah. What about the fact that apes are incredibly important in CryptoPunks, and Bored Ape Yacht Club was the next most important project that came out in that era.
So crazy.
Cool. Super cool. So what was your aha? Because we're still
the aha there was punks were starting to rise.
You bought it in 17. Nobody knew. Yep. Punks were starting to rise when? That summer?
Before fall? That, no. So when I unlocked them, they were worth a couple thousand a piece in December. Right. Yeah. Then January, February, they started climbing. And then I saw a bunch. What really opened my eyes is how much tooling had been created. So OpenSea didn't exist back then. So I saw OpenSea, then I saw Super Rare, and I was like, oh wow, there's marketplaces here. And I noticed there was some artists that were dropping that were digitally native artists like Xcopy that only existed on the blockchain. And you were like, I was like, whoa, wait a second, this is the Banksy for the digital world. And it's like, and then art blocks dropped. And when art blocks started to blow up, I was like, whoa, generative art is crazy. I'm like, this is going to catch fire. There's too many independent little flames burning. They're all going to connect. And when the dots connect, they're going to blow up. And so I jumped in hard on art blocks and started minting all the crazy early art block stuff. But yeah, it's kind of that, you get that gut feeling like there's momentum here. We were talking at the same time. I remember we were getting on these calls. You'd FaceTime me late at night, and it was really late for you because I think you were on East Coast. And it was just like these big groups of people I would be thrown into the room, and you're like, Kev, I just got some more punks. Tell us what else. We'd just be talking about random stuff.
The fucking best. I got to go to my next thing because I can't be rude. I love you. I could do this a bunch. Thank you for being on. Thanks for this conversation. I love you.
Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
And I'll see you in an hour or two or whatever it is.
Yeah, sounds good.
Love you. See ya.